Greetings, listeners. You're tuning in to Sinister Soup, an audio imprint of Grendel Press for lovers of everything dark and delicious. I'm your host, Clay Vermulm. We hope you enjoy today's story, and remember to stay tuned afterwards for a featured interview with the author. See you on the other side. Water Drops on Stone Hearts by Christopher O'Halloran. Water drops hit the carpet like tiny fingers behind a curtain, a soft, rhythmic pat, pat, pat. Andrea hears the drops now that the sound of rushing water coming from the tap has ceased. She stops brushing, foam lathering between her lips and gums. 30 years ago, Mrs. Johnson taught Andrea's grade 3 class to conserve water for the sake of our planet. Turn the tap off while you brush your teeth, and only turn it on to rinse. A lesson Andrea should have taught her daughter. A lesson Julianne might have taught her in her absence. Pat, pat, pat. The sound comes from her right, just past the open door. In the walk-in closet leading to the room she shares with nobody. The room where Clippy, the rubber duck, sits on her nightstand in his usual spot, waiting patiently atop her old copy of Anna Karenina. Andrea had once again crawled into bed forgetting to brush her teeth and had to rise with a groan to complete the arduous chore. "That you, Clippy?" He makes no reply. She knows he's not wet, he's not a bath-time duck, he's a programming tool. Something she can bounce ideas off, a focal point for her troubleshooting. Clippy isn't dripping. Something nearby is. Something that smells faintly of wood rot and skunk cabbage. The bathroom is dark. A small nightlight in the corner glows a soft red. A calming tone that will help her fall back asleep. As different from the fluorescent bathroom lights as this condo is from the home she left years ago. The soft glow of the nightlight doesn't reach the closet. It barely reaches Andrea, casting her face in scarlet shadows that distort the features she hates. Her long, pointed nose, her round face whose cheeks bounce when she runs, acne scars she shouldn't have picked. If there's something dripping in her closet, she'll need to fix it. She'll need light. Sleep is long gone anyway. Grab the toolkit, Clippy. She leans down to spit, and economical in everything, even her motions, flips the light switch. The bulbs fire up and fully illuminate the woman in the closet. Andrea screams. She falls to the floor, banging her elbow on the way down. The woman's neck stretches long, vertebrae sticking out along twisted flesh. Her head is cocked at a wrong angle, chin pointed towards Andrea like an accusatory finger. Her eyes squeeze shut and her mouth turns down in a grimace as if she ate something bitter, a wilted plant, a crushed aspirin. Bloodshot eyes spring open, full of pleading, full of a desperate desire to live. She's young, skin pock-marked with the acne scars from teenage years of popping and picking. Unshed baby fat turns her cheeks round. Her mouth creaks open in supplication, but all that pours out is the harsh ringing of a phone. Andrea screams again. Neighbors be damned. She closes her eyes, holds her hands out in a feeble attempt to ward off the woman in her closet. Any moment now, she'll lurch forward. She'll come for Andrea. What will her outstretched palms touch first? The soaking wet fabric of her jeans? The torn blouse? Her cold, pale flesh? The phone rings again. Andrea opens her eyes, and the woman is gone. Clippy makes no acknowledgement of the disruption. The neighbors don't even bang. In a daze, Andrea climbs to her feet, nursing her sore elbow. The phone rings once more, and she hurries to answer it. "Hello?" Her voice is a whisper. She still tastes the mint of her toothpaste coating her teeth like a moss carpet over river rocks. Andrea clears her throat. "Hello?" A man on the other end is crying. A high-pitched whine slips out over the line. Andrea looks at the phone. It's Julian, her ex. What's wrong, Julian? Are you okay? Andrea looks at Clippy. For a second, her eyes lose focus. The bright yellow rubber turns briefly green, and Andrea thinks she's going to faint. Colors right themselves, and Clippy pops back into focus. Lemon yellow. He stares at the closet, his bright smile the antithesis of the noise Julian makes from across the country. It's Mariana, he sobs. Their daughter, a woman Andrea doesn't know. The last time she saw her, Mariana was 13. Andrea follows Clippy's gaze to the closet. Beneath the plain blouses, the heavy jackets, the featureless cardigans, there is a dark puddle. Her daughter is in a closed casket, and nobody says why. Andrea can hardly blame them. Julian's parents, his co-workers, his friends, Mariana's peers, all looking as if they stumbled out of middle school and not like the college-age kids of her time. They all peer at Andrea, out of the corner of their eyes, murmuring to each other, "That's her. Why do you think she left? Didn't even talk to them anymore, refused to." The refusal was Mariana's, but Andrea never pushed it. She had been more than okay with letting the contact dry up. The truth is, she was never meant to be a mom. According to everyone, she's cold, impatient, miserable. Trying costs more damage than leaving. Andrea places her fingers on the lid of the casket. It's hard to touch, warm like something living, like something inside is burning to get out. What would she see if she threw open the lid? An elongated neck, gray skin the color of a fish belly, soaking wet clothes? No, they would have changed her, put her in a dress she would have hated. Does Mariana still hate dresses the way she did as a kid? We didn't know if you were going to come. Julian speaks at her side. His voice sounds shredded, as if he had torn his larynx to pieces over the grief of his lost child. They told me not to invite you. You could have told me after the funeral, says Andrea. A small part of you must have wanted me here. She reaches out and brushes a pinky across his hand. He pulls away. I wasn't the one to leave. You know it wasn't doing us any good, says Andrea. She runs a finger along the crease between the lid and the body of the casket, ready to fling it open, to see her daughter a final time. Why the closed casket? No me hinches los pelotas, curses Julian. I don't need you coming back and casting your doubts on my choices. I'm just asking. You made your choice. He points his hand to the lid of the casket, holding it down, making sure she can't take a look. She wants to ask a million questions. What was she like? Was she abrasive like Andrea? Was she a little too honest, a little too critical, a little too sensitive maybe? Did she like things done a certain way, or was she more like Julian, going with the flow, being okay with failure, with a half-assed job, with the bare minimum? How did she die? Is a question she settles on. Everyone made veiled remarks about how she was at peace now, how she had been so strong for everyone. The tip of the spear, sharp, but the first spot to blunt. Andrea has her suspicions, but she needs to hear the truth. You don't deserve to know, says Julian. His voice is quiet but full of vinegar. People are looking, talking. I'm her mother, says Andrea. Me chupla en huevo, curses Julian once more. You didn't act like it. She wouldn't do something like this. How would you know? Julian stares through her. His hair bristles along his skull like the sandpaper he used to restore their kitchen table, back in another life. Efficient. Andrea had always admired that part of him. How would you know what she would do and what she wouldn't? Julian's father approaches from behind and puts a hand on his son's shoulder. He whispers something in his ear, something in Spanish. Andrea doesn't catch it. Tears turn Julian's eyes glassy. She was starting to look just like you. The tears fall. They tumble down his cheeks, perching on the corner of his mouth for a second before dripping off to splash on his cheap shoes. Just like you. His father leads him away. I know, whispers Andrea. Since she was young, Andrea saw her own features in her daughter. She wished she hadn't. She prayed for Mariana to get more of her father, but her prayers went unanswered. Moving hadn't helped. Distance was no match for genetics. Andrea rubs a palm across the lid of the casket. It doesn't feel as warm as it did. The wood is dying, ready for burial. Mariana is not ready for burial. She is falling, pulled by torrential force of water, tugging at her clothes, her flesh. On her face is the panic of a drowning cat. She pinches her mouth shut, trying to hold on to the air in her lungs, but it's a long fall. Her dark, curly hair flows upward as panic gives way to peace. This is it. This is the end. An end to the suffering, the endless loop, the broken record. But the end comes hard. She hits the rocky pool at the bottom of her fall. It's like hitting concrete. Bones shatter, her organs are torn apart as they rattle against the shards of her rib cage. The look of serenity on her face contorts, becoming something like disgust. Swallowing what your mother told you was medicine, but turned out to be arsenic. Whistles and bells ring out from above the water. Though she can feel nothing, see nothing, she still hears it. Shrill noises passing through the water, cutting the sound of the rush, mingling with it until it becomes a cacophony more unbearable than the fall. A rope. The end tied in a loop hooks around her neck. It slips under her chin. Whoever threw it begins to pull, stretching her head away from her body. The weight of all that unbroken china sinking. The weight of all that broken china sinking while someone tries to retrieve her. Her neck stretches. The last thing she hears, the ticking of a metronome to the raucous sound of rushing water and shrieking whistles, is the vertebrae in her neck, popping out of position. Andrea wakes covered in sweat. It's as if someone poured a bucket over her sleeping form. The sheets are soaked. She won't be surprised if it's reached all the way to the mattress. Maybe the hotel has some sort of protection over it. Maybe she'll just have to tip extra before she leaves. The amount of moisture is too much to have come from her, as if she had been both observer and the observed, herself and her daughter. She looks over at the glass of water on her side table. It's empty. Clippy sits on the other side of it, happy, wide eyes unblinking. Was that you, Clippy? He doesn't answer. If I wanted a wake-up call, I'd have asked the hotel for a drier one. Andrea slips out of bed and goes into the unfamiliar bathroom, groping for a towel, not turning on the lights, wanting to go back to sleep, not learning her lesson. Anything can sneak up on you in the dark. Her eyes buried in the fluffy texture of the hotel towel, Andrea stops breathing. Drops of water splash against tile, one for every 20 heartbeats rushing through her ears. A cold sheet falls over her like a garden hose. Her body hums, stuck between collapse and escape. It's nothing, she thinks. It's the bathtub. Andrea is logical. She doesn't make decisions based on emotion. She doesn't see ghosts in every shadow. When she pops her head out of the towel and turns on the light, she sees drops of water forming on the mesh of the sink faucet. Molecules coalescing, building until their combined weight pulls them away from the grill and down another. She breathes a sigh of relief. I'm losing it, Clippy. She turns the bathroom light off. Something glows from the main room. Her laptop sits on the desk. It's no longer in the bag she'd been too exhausted to take it out from last night. On numb legs, Andrea shuffles out of the bathroom. The towel falls forgotten to the floor, and when she sits in the chair in front of her laptop, her pajama pants make a wet squelch that sends rivulets over the fabric and down the cheap wood of the legs. They never told me how you died. She's not talking to Clippy anymore. She opens her web browser and clicks on the search bar. Her cursor blinks at her, waiting for her query. How did you die? Andrea types death, Vancouver, 2024. Too much, too vague. The results encompass everything, most of it celebrity related. Suicide, Vancouver, 2024. Again, too vague. Girl drowned, Vancouver, 2024. That does it. As soon as she sees the headline, Andrea knows. Rescue team pulls body of woman from bottom of Cascade Falls. It's you, she says. That's how you died. Something shuffles at her legs, a body moving closer. A cold girl attempting to find warmth at the lap of her mother. Andrea closes her eyes. What were you doing there, Mariana? It's a dumb question. She knows why Mariana was there. Andrea raises her hand and holds it over her daughter's head. There's no way she can really be there, but Andrea can pretend, right? There's nobody to judge her here. Nobody to tell her she's doing it wrong. The moisture in Mariana's hair tingles against Andrea's palm, though they don't touch. She holds her breath again. It's been so long since she's given comfort. Will she be able to? Her hand falls and passes through flesh like mist. If Mariana was there before, she isn't now. It's been almost 2 decades since Andrea visited Cascade Falls. The roar of the waterfall is deafening from this close. She's had to climb a barrier to get there, one that wasn't in place when she came with Mariana, back when she was still a mother. That had been one of the last good days. Julian had encouraged Andrea to take Mariana out for a mommy-daughter day, something to bring her closer to her 6-year-old, something to break through the anger, the depression, the weight of expectation manifesting in her body like ice on the wing of a plane. Nothing was ever as perfect as Andrea wanted it to be. She couldn't be the mother the world demanded. She was doomed to be just like her own, cold, distant, happiness always out of reach. But when she sat inside the falls with her 6-year-old, it all seemed to slough away. The roar of the rushing water was greater than the roar of her disappointment, the roar of her responsibility. They sat together closer than ever. Mariana laid in her lap and Andrea stroked her long, beautiful hair. She had looked more like Andrea every day. Andrea remembers pretending that Mariana was herself as a child and giving herself that love and acceptance that had been non-existent. But outside the falls, Mariana continued looking like Andrea. It became an irritant, a reminder of every flaw, every failure in her own life, a mirror that reflected every ugly part of herself. Leaving was the only option. Her toxicity would have infected her family if she didn't. Like her own mother said, she was never meant to be anything but alone. Maybe, if she could have lived at the waterfall in the midst of that roar, she could have been the mother Mariana deserved. Is that why Mariana came here? Did she have the same thoughts, feel the same weight of the world infesting her? She didn't do it, Andrea says, standing by the water. Clippy is back at the hotel room, but she speaks aloud out of habit. She wouldn't. The smell of wood rot and skunk cabbage slips inside her, death and life that smells somehow pleasant. Something bobs in the river flowing past. A misshapen chunk of forest green rubber rotating in the current, head breaching the water. A rubber duck. Not hers, not Clippy, but another piece of Andrea's past, a gift they'd received at her baby shower. An expensive toy, made with cruelty-free rubber, something to save, something to cherish, something to keep out of reach of little girls who might ruin it. It flows past, a toy denied to Mariana for 6 long years. Andrea wants to grab for it, but it's out of reach. A dead tree hangs over the part of the river, but anyone who would use that to lean down to scoop up the passing duck would be... No. Andrea covers her mouth. She doesn't know why she's seeing the duck. It goes over the falls, dropping out of sight. There's nothing left to suggest it was there to begin with. Did you see it too? Andrea asks. Did you try to rescue it? Another flash of green appears at the corner of Andrea's sight. Another duck. It bobs in the current, passes under the tree again. Something follows it. Dark, soaked in the water. Like a log, but many-limbed. It bounces against a jutting rock and rolls over. Andrea cries out. Her daughter's face pops above the surface of the water. Her eyes are closed and her mouth is twisted in a scowl. She looks exactly like Andrea did in her 20s. Andrea can't move. Mariana, how can she be in the ground and here at the same time, floats past. Dead but not at rest. The water jostles her, violates her, takes her over the edge of the falls and out of sight. Tears fall from Andrea's eyes. Her knees shake. She wants to collapse. "I should have given you the duck," she whispers. "I should have given you the duck. You wanted it so bad, you..." Her voice fails, though her lips make the motion. She can barely breathe. Her lungs cry out for oxygen. Another duck goes past. Another Mariana. Another. A never-ending loop of suffering daughters of floating women reaching for their mother's love. Andrea moves. She can't stop herself. For once, she's not thinking, not calculating. She's sprinting for the tree, inching out along it, feet on the bank's edge, leaning over as far as she can. The falls pound in her ears. It threatens to burst her eardrums, makes her eyes shake. She needs to do this. She needs to break the cycle. The forest green duck goes past, but she ignores it. She's not here for the duck. It drops over the edge, only a few feet down the river. Mariana is coming. This close, it looks like she's moving at highway speeds. There's no way she can grab her, not without falling in herself. Andrea redoubles her grip on the branch and stretches towards the water. It sprays up at her. Hard, jagged bark cuts her fingers. Blood flows over her hand and down her wrist, snaking its way to a screaming shoulder. One shot. She can do it. "Come on," she says, gritting her teeth. "Come on, baby." Mariana is under her suddenly. Andrea grabs her shirt, gets a good handful of fabric. The river pulls Mariana, trying to lay claim to her, but Andrea will not let go. Something in her shoulder pops. Agony shoots out along Andrea's collarbone. She screams. The noise louder than the falls, louder than the whistles of someone out of sight, a rescuer noticing the struggling woman. Andrea screams again and lurches away from the river, pulling her daughter out. Mariana's limp form falls on top of her, heavy with the weight of the water she's absorbed. It flows over Andrea, soaking her pants. "Oh," she moans, the sound lost. "Oh, honey." Mariana's head is in her lap once more, that grimace pointed at the sky, as if the brightness is too much for her eyes even closed. Andrea rolls her, so she's looking over the edge of the falls, off into the distance. She can pretend like that, pretend her little girl's with her again, that the world has no expectations for either of them. "I've got you, baby. You're okay, you're all right." With Andrea's shawl over that broken, distorted neck, she can pretend her daughter is sleeping. They're just in a moment between breaths, waiting for the inhale. Andrea runs her fingers through Mariana's wet hair. She gently works the tangles out, careful not to pull too hard. Her arms hang limp, the shoulder throbbing and misshapen, but that's why Andrea has two. "I'm here, baby." The blood from her ripped fingers runs down Mariana's cheeks. "I'm here." The rushing water is clear. No bobbing duck. Nothing. Thank you, Chris, for sharing this tragic and touching story with us. This story speaks well to that fear which resonates in all of us, I think. That fear of being a parent, of being worthy, of being better than the failures of your own upbringing. But the true horror in that conundrum lies within ourselves, locked there, just as our genetics are, something we cannot escape. We are, after all, a product of our nature and nurture, and that product is going to be passed along to our own kids, to our marriage, to every relationship we find ourselves in for the remainder of our lives. So what happens when all we can see in ourselves is the parts we despise? A terrifying prospect indeed. I feel for Andrea in this story despite all her shortcomings as a mother, and I think that's a testament to what Chris has managed to pull off in this horrifying story about redemption, regret, and the mistakes we make that will haunt our waking years. If you enjoyed this story, go follow Chris at the link in the show notes. His new novel, Pushing Daisy, is forthcoming very soon, and that's certainly something to look forward to. In lieu of our usual author interview, I'll share a special treat with you this week. You see, we just had Chris on my other podcast, Fermented Fiction, where we debate genre fiction, and he hung out with us, discussing the Fallout TV show and all manners of other fiction topics for the better part of 2 hours. So, if you have time and feel like diving into another awesome podcast, you can learn all about Chris on his episode of Fermented Fiction, linked in the show notes. As always, thanks for listening and reading dark fiction. Without all of you, none of us would have the privilege of bringing more art into the world, and for that, we are forever in your debt. Until next time, this has been Sinister Soup, an audio and online imprint of Grendel Press. I've been your host, Clay Vermulm, imploring you to stay spooky and to continue exploring those shadowy corners of the world. See you next time.